What do you do when you know what to do, but you still don't do it? This is a question I received during a recent private event Q&A while discussing the lack of clarity overwhelm culprit. And I realized this is a really great topic to cover here since the reason why this happens isn't always obvious. It's not about knowing what you know you need to do. It's about having clarity on what type of bottlenecks you're encountering that's preventing you from moving forward. The real one may actually surprise you. If you're a high achiever who knows what you need to do to take the next step, but find yourself not doing whatever that is, then you're going to want to stick around because by the end of this episode, you'll know why you're in this pattern and how to break yourself out of it. If you're new here, my name is Corrie Logaitis, otherwise known as Corrie Low, and I'm a professional keynote speaker, facilitator, leadership expert, and author who helps high achievers transform overwhelm into confident leadership action, even in times of crisis. Now, I understand the situation, knowing what to do, but still can't bring yourself to do it, because this was me 4 years ago. I consistently, on a regular basis, had people asking me for a book. It was part of every keynote Q&A I did. It was constantly being asked in my DMs. Even my therapist during a session had asked me, "Hey, Corrie, when are you going to write a book?" So I knew that writing a book was my next logical step, especially in terms of my business. But I dragged my feet on getting one started for years. Though I did try to start. I did things like I signed up for courses and I drafted a book proposal and I wrote some sample chapters and I even queried some agents with no results. And I found myself at this impasse that I just couldn't bring myself to keep querying more agents. And so I was just at this standstill. I knew I needed to write a book. I knew I had to publish something, but I just wasn't moving forward from there. I was stuck. And add to this, I was also full-time running a coaching and speaking business. I was also managing a household with 4 kids in 2 different school districts, mind you. And I'm also at this time doing everything myself, everything. So I'd love to know if there was a task or a goal that you knew that you wanted to do, but you just can't bring yourself to taking action on it. Share it below in the comments. I'd love to help you get to the root of the issue. So when you know what you need to do, but you can't bring yourself to follow through, it's because you have some sort of a bottleneck. And most folks think that bottlenecks are strictly strategy based, meaning that it's action based. There's something that you're doing wrong, and that's the bottleneck. But a lot of times, and this is actually far more common, I found for both myself as well as my coaching clients, is it's fear based. That or it could even be a combo. So let me explain. So when you have a strategy based bottleneck, these are some signs. You don't know what you don't know. So as a result, you don't move forward on it because you don't know what you should be moving forward on because you don't know enough about whatever it is that you should be doing it. The next one is you keep trying the same thing and you get the same exact result. If you keep doing that and getting the same result, you might actually need a different strategy than what you're doing because what you're doing isn't working. Catch my gist? The problem with all this is when you don't address the strategy, you also run the risk of burning out on whatever it is you're doing. And then later fearing that action because it doesn't work, because you're afraid you're just going to show up with another failure. So my situation with querying agents, that's what this became. So my solution to this issue was I enlisted help. I chose to hire an author mentor. And through doing this, she helped me uncover that there were obviously some gaps in my book proposal, as well as the query process that I didn't know what I didn't know. So it wasn't working for me. And in hiring her, it also gave me a financial incentive to make sure that I was following through because obviously I put money on the line. So I was going to want to see it through. So that helped me do the thing that I wanted to do, but I just couldn't follow through by actually spending money. Helped me. And this also helps too if you're trying to take action through something despite fear. So for me, I had this fear that I was going to get more no's in the query process, which leads me to talking about fear-based bottlenecks. So when you get to this point, if it's not strategy-based and you're doing the strategy stuff and it's still not working, chances are you have a fear-based bottleneck. When you address the fear, then you get back in action again. So the easiest way to identify your fears is by breaking down what is the worst thing that can happen? What is the negative consequence of me doing the thing that I know I need to do? Sometimes this could be the result of a strategy-based bottleneck that was never addressed and it turned into a fear, like my book with querying the agents. So some fears that I had surrounding the book, and these are very real fears. So first one was that my friends and family would judge my story, because a big part of my book is sharing my journey navigating these traumatic life events. And a lot of people didn't know the whole story. So I really feared that people were going to judge me for it. I also feared, this was probably a larger fear than the friends and family, I feared that my kids would know my trauma history. I really did not want my kids to see that, especially at this age. I also feared that my story would be permanently published forever and there's no going back after it's in print. I feared that my book would suck and not be valuable to people. Very real fear. I also feared that people would know that I'm a fraud. I very much was dealing with imposter syndrome when it came to writing a book. Even though I had people literally asking me to write the book, I was so afraid that I was not a thought leader in the way that I should be and that people would know. And then I was also, and this is circling back to that fear that I had surrounding the querying with the agents. I had this legitimate fear that if I kept querying, that I would burn out any opportunities I would have of getting an agent and being traditionally published because I would have queried all of them and failed. So in order for me to get past this, I had to rewire the fears, mentally rewire them. My favorite strategies for this are 3 specific tools. First one is affirmations. So I would say things like, my friends and family won't judge my story. Basically, the reverse of whatever my fear was. I would say on a regular basis, usually in the mornings as part of my morning routine, what the opposite of that was. So those are my affirmations. One in particular that really stands out to me that I said for a long time was, I belong among the famous thought leaders that inspire me, to rewire that imposter syndrome that I was having. Another great tool for rewiring fears is emotional freedom technique, or EFT. And I'm not going to dive deep into how you do it on this video. That's the topic for another video. If you're interested in it, comment below, let me know. But it's where you tap on different meridian points on your body while citing your fears and the opposite of it to basically show your body it's safe, to help literally rewire it. So I love EFT for it. And I also love the idea of taking mini actions. So for me, hiring the coach, it wasn't necessarily a mini action, but it was an action I was taking towards dealing with my fear of burning out all the query agents. At least I know by having somebody else's eyes on it that I was putting the best possible product in front of the agents. And then sure enough, I ended up landing an agent. But that said, affirmations, EFT, and taking action, some of them can be mini actions, small, little manageable steps towards that fear can be really helpful. So to recap, if you know what you need to do, but you still can't bring yourself to follow through, know that there are 2 different types of bottlenecks that could be affecting your scenario. It could either be strategy-based or it could be fear-based. And a lot of times too, if you're doing the strategy and you get to a certain point, the strategy bottleneck can turn into a fear-based bottleneck, or it could be a combination of both, like my example. To be able to remove the bottleneck, you're going to have to identify which to apply to your situation and then address that specific bottleneck to get yourself in action again. So hopefully you found my sharing this today valuable. If you have a question that you would like for me to cover, either on this topic of clarity or maybe something else, feel free to leave a comment below, and I just may feature it on a future episode. And if what I shared today really resonated and you want to know for sure if the lack of clarity, overwhelm culprit, it's what's holding back your actions and your results, I invite you to take my free quiz. I'm going to link to it in the show notes below. And you can also learn more ways to work with me, whether that be one-on-one through coaching and advisory on managing your fears, or through organizations and teams through my speaking offers. You can find that information in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you on the next episode. I'll see you then. Thanks for checking out The Next Step with Corrie Lowe. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a review. Together, we'll transform overwhelm into action, and we'll keep taking the next step towards confident leadership. See you next time.